Um, I'm very happy to be here at Raipur. I don't know what it is about Raipur. I keep coming again and again. I was just telling the media this afternoon, I think I'm going to have to buy an apartment here. Well, over here I can buy a house. In Mumbai it has to be an apartment. I'm sorry? Exactly. And I've got the right people here as well to buy one. It's really a pleasure to be here again. And it's wonderful. I'm coming here again for awards this time. I was here before for different events, but when you have emerging awards, it's always good to recognize talent, because besides appreciating talent, and we all love recognition. I can say that having received recognition myself. It's great to appreciate and to recognize, and it also charges people and instigates them, drives them to perform better, and hopefully they would get awards the next year, and they would get recognition the next year. I think awards are very important because they make us strive to perform better, and appreciation is always good. So I'd like to congratulate everybody who is being acknowledged and awarded today, and good luck to everybody else. Enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Miss Diana Hayden, former Miss World and international model. This is the third time we are sharing the stage. And Mr. Vijay Batra, renowned management thinker and speaker. This is the second time we are sharing the stage. I purposely left out his Japanese name because I don't want to misspell or mispronounce your name, so sorry. Of course, we have a range of dignitaries on the dais, Mr. Naik, Anil G. Paul, Sanjay Chaudhary, Ashutosh Singh, and other dignitaries off the stage from Chhattisgarh, and award winners from the government and the industry, media personnel, and ladies and gentlemen. My thanks to Think Media, particularly Sandeep and Ansari, for inviting me for this emerging Jharkhand Awards. Sorry, this is the problem. I'm still in Jharkhand. I started in the morning from Jharkhand. I see some mischief in inviting me for this award from Jharkhand to actually preside over a Chhattisgarh Awards function. Because anytime you think of Chhattisgarh, you cannot avoid comparison with Jharkhand and Uttaranchal. Uttarakhand, I mean, unfortunately, Jharkhand never took off, and Uttarakhand had its own share of natural calamities and all kinds of problems. I am really tempted to rename this event. I mean, should we really call it a emerging Chhattisgarh or emerged Chhattisgarh? I mean, you already reached fantastic levels of growth. And, also, your pro-poor policies. I mean, these are models for the rest of the country to follow. I mean, 25 kg rise and many other initiatives of your government. This speaks basically volumes of the leadership of Chhattisgarh, and also the committed bureaucrats who have implemented the vision of the leaders, and also the private and public enterprises which have joined hands with the government in actually making Chhattisgarh one of the leading states in the country. It's not that the other states do not have pro-poor policies or developmental initiatives. They also have lots of schemes and other kinds of activities. But unfortunately, what really reaches the poor people is very little. I'm just reminded of a small anecdote. This is a story about a farmer who had a very loving wife, and the wife fell ill. So he went to different doctors but could not cure, so finally he went to the God and prayed that if my wife gets well, the only goat I have, I've raised, I will give you in offering. So whatever the goat cost, that money I will give as a hundi collection. So luckily she survived, and she recovered, and then the farmer was very happy. So what he did was he went to the market to sell the goat, so that he can pay his whatever is the promised amount to the god. So what he did was he actually tied the goat with the rope, and then he put the price of the goat as 4,999 rupees. Price of the rope was 4,999 rupees. And he said, whoever buys my goat, it is only 1 rupee. You will have to buy the rope also. Now, what happened is that finally one person thought, anyway, how does it matter? I'm going to pay 5,000 rupees. Whether it is for the rope or for the goat, it doesn't matter. Finally, he sold the goat for 1 rupee and sold the rope for 4,999 rupees. Put that 1 rupee as a hundi collection and he said, this is your actually share. Now you take it. So that's what really happens. You see, I mean, you allot, you know what percentage really goes to the God and what amount goes to the pujaris. That's what really happens in most of the states. There's one other area, I mean, of course, here Chhattisgarh is doing very well compared to many other states. You are able to have pro-poor policies. But there is one other area where, for example, there is a lot of similarity between Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand. We both actually suffer from these kangaroo courts and these unconstitutional governments in the jungle. This is a problem, which we have to face. Now, when I look at these states, particularly Chhattisgarh or Jharkhand, these kind of extremist infested states, I can only think of Sri Lanka, which is the closest to all these the problem that we are experiencing here. I am a regular visitor to Sri Lanka almost for the last 10 years. Even last month I was in Sri Lanka. I've seen the kind of struggles and finally where they are today. Now, before Mr. Rajapaksa took over as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the state of Sri Lanka was not very different from what we see in particularly in Jharkhand or other states. Typically, for example, once when I visited Sri Lanka, there was a lot of rumor going around saying that there's some nexus between the government and the LTTs. So there was a lot of power cuts. As such, when I was there, one power station was also bombed by the LTTs, and the power crisis worsened. That day there was a newspaper report which said that the Prime Minister's son had imported large number of gensets to be sold, and then many of them remained unsold. So they sent a word to LTT asking them to bomb the power station so that actually he can liquidate all his stocks. And as exactly planned, they were able to completely sell off all the gensets, and it prevailed. Now this unholy nexus, between the politicians, the extremists, the bureaucrats, government officials, and the business people, and they were paying protection money to LTT to run their businesses in the Tamil-dominated areas. Now, there are a lot of parallels. I am not saying exactly the same thing is happening in these states, but then there was one man who made a big difference to the country. Mr. Rajapaksa, when he actually took over as the Prime Minister, he said that I will root out this at any cost. He went about systematically and then completely eliminated that extremism. I mean, I used to carry my passport, ID cards. You will be stopped at every stage, when you actually travel within Colombo itself. And when I travel outside Colombo, go to Kandy and other places, it used to be still worse. But then last visit when I was there, it was so pleasant, and you could travel everywhere. You can see joy in the faces of people. People are fearless, free, there is growth, there is development, everything is happening. So there is, there will be always good and bad everywhere. There will be, good and poor performance in every sector. And we cannot treat everybody equally. I mean, this is the problem, and somehow people think that actually socialism is the answer to everything. In fact, in one economics class, apparently the students all started arguing with the professor that socialism is the best mode. And they said no one will be poor and no one will be rich. It will be a great equalizer. Now the professor said, okay, we will then have an experiment in this class on socialism. So he said actually, instead of giving you grades A, B, C, D, etc., what I will do is, whatever marks you get, I will take the average of that. That is the grade I will assign to all of you. Then the students were very happy, they all agreed. After the first test, the grades were average and everybody got a B. Now the problem was that the students who studied hard and were really upset, who got a A, they are now reduced to B. Now the students actually who did not study much, who got C and D, they all got average to B, so they were also happy. It's a great equalizer, it's a fantastic thing. But then what happened? In the next test, the average was actually D. Because the persons who actually studied hard, they said, what's the point? Even if I study, I'm going to get an average only. Guys who are not studying anyway did not study at all. Finally what happened was, as tests proceeded, the scores never actually increased. But instead actually there was name calling, bickering, pointing fingers at each other, and finally when the grades came, all of them failed. And then that's a lesson actually the professor actually gave to the entire class. He said, remember only the 5 best sentences you can ever read and all applicable to this experiment. 1, you cannot legislate the poor into prosperity by legislating the wealthy out of prosperity. I mean, you can't make them not prosperous and then make somebody prosperous. What one person receives without working for, another person must work without receiving. The government cannot give to anybody anything that the government does not first take from somebody else. 4th point, you cannot multiply wealth by dividing it. When half of the people get the idea that they do not have to work because the other half is going to take care of them, and when the other half gets the idea that it does not do good to work because somebody else is going to get what they work for, that's the beginning of the end of any nation. So this is the basic problem. Now you have to recognize, that's a fundamental idea. So you have to reward. Now if you do not reward good performers, they won't actually become bad and bad and bad. But of course, good performers can never rest on their laurels because then they will say that you actually got it by a fluke or by luck. Now, the award winnees, whoever is going to receive the awards today, I mean, it's a big burden on you because once you win once, next year you have to be there. If you are not there, people will say that last time you got it by fluke, last year you got it by luck. So you have to work really hard at it. Of course, even Diana was mentioning about how it motivates people to really work hard. I read somewhere that 3 billion people on the face of the earth go to bed hungry every night. 3 billion people go to bed hungry every night, but 4 billion people go to bed every night hungry for a simple word of encouragement and recognition. That's what actually people are longing for. Everybody wants that. So, rather than actually, worrying about dishing out all these subsidies, appreciate, and then people will really come out. So I greatly appreciate Think Media, Walford Building Homes and other sponsors of this brilliant award function that recognizes good performance. Johar, Chhattisgarh, thank you very much.
I realize that's not how your nose looks, is it not right? It's how you feel about yourself that makes you either ugly or beautiful. And it's always good to have good looks, definitely, don't get me wrong. But I think there are so many great people. I remember it broke my heart when I found out that Parveen Babi, remember? Oh, jab Parveen Babi ji screen pe aati thi, magarbattiyan jala dete the, it was such a feeling, right? And when I found out that she died for 3 days, people didn't know about her, is it not? And how could I think a beautiful woman as good as Parveen Babi looking she was, because she had stopped receiving, or she felt that she stopped receiving appreciation. So I really thank Dr. Xavier to really, get this, hammer on the nail. Let's appreciate each other, starting from our family members. And Think Media, I'm sure, is going to be our party to Mount Everest and back, by the way, and plus 20 lakhs. But says, I'm so glad I've done it. Because having done that, now every kid in a Sangha school is calling me to talk to them. And I've been to my son's school 3 times and I see my son really, he looks at me different now. Because I can understand with him. I've got 2 kids. जब तक बच्चे 10 साल से छोटे होते हैं ना, वो अपने माँ बाप को भगवान के रूप में देखते हैं, राइट? पर जब 12 साल के होते हैं ना, उनको दिमाग में डाउट आता है कि बंदा डिफेक्टिव कर रहा है, और 15 साल तक यकीन हो जाता है कि बंदा ही गलत है, and they stop listening to you, absolutely, right? But it says, Manish Dekar said that my son now has promised me he'll work harder in school, he will look after his health, he will play sports, and he will do what I'm doing better than I am doing right now. Obviously, I don't expect people in Chhattisgarh to now, start climbing Mount Everest. But I think you've got to find your own way by which you can inject the same passion that you have. So in the years to come, we will reward your sons for what they have done and not for what you left behind for them. That, I think, is my dream and vision for your next generation. And I'm hoping that your next generation, obviously, will not only build Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand and Odisha, but finally the whole world. I think a lot of Indian business people now are going global. Thanks to Sunil Bharti Mittal, right? He's taken over the telecom responsibility in certain part of Africa. And why not? I think Indian business people are really powerful. Why? Because they can do much more with less. And some of these developing countries like Africa need people like you who can do more and more with less and less, and also deal with certain parts of corruption that you guys face from time to time. I'm not saying Indian politicians and bureaucrats are corrupt. Some of them are corrupt, like that's the case in Korea and Japan as well. But I think the Japanese, the Koreans, and Indian business people, I think they have a good idea as to how to deal with issues. And I'm hoping that this is just a start. We'll start the process of recognizing the awardees. क्योंकि बैठ के क्यों आपको थक गए.
And my dear friends of Right. See, I would just welcome all of you here for this Excellence Award ceremony. IBC 24 is an organization which transformed just in 1 month and 18 days from their old brand. So I just welcome all of you from IBC 24, and I give my all good wishes for the grand success of this program. Thank you very much.
एवं मंच पे बैठे समस्त अतिथिगण का वालकोट परिवार की ओर से मैं हार्दिक स्वागत एवं अभिनंदन करता हूँ। टाइम्स मीडिया का यह प्रयास काफी सराहनीय है एवं उनके समस्त सदस्यों को हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं।
Good evening to all friends, respected Mr. Naik, beautiful lady Diana, my seniors Mr. Batra, and all my friends. 94.3 My FM is really privileged to be a part of this esteemed event, this distinguished award ceremony. When Mr. Sandeep Behra, partner to Mr. Batra, when he approached us with this, hearing to the concept was really motivating, and we took not even a moment to say that yes, we'll be a partner to it. Mr. Batra, I would say that this is one such wonderful thing that you brought to the state that is really much needed, because wonderful things done by our industrialists, our entrepreneurs, our bureaucrats, and our government in Chhattisgarh, which is actually setting trend in the country. I'd like to mention something I read just day before yesterday that public PDS system of Chhattisgarh is being replicated across the country. The national government is replicating what we have done here in this state. So thank you so much for doing this to our state, and we'll be extending our support year after year. Thank you so much.